So what I want to do now is I want to store user information. I want to create one of these user profiles. I have two code paths now. So you notice that when a brand new user signed in with Google OAuth, they didn't have to sign up with Google OAuth, right? They weren't a user. They signed in with it. Then Firebase created a user for them. So one way that you can sign up for an account is to simply sign in with Google, right? The other one is to actually go to that sign up form and do it. So we have two code paths that we need to deal with here. We need to either figure out if it's happening from the sign up form or if they're coming in this other way. Also, we don't want to recreate the account. So for instance, if they sign in with Google, we can be like, yeah, take that photo URL, take that display name. Those seem like sensible defaults. Let's go with that, right? But if we do it on every login, that means they can log in, they upload a new picture and change the display name, and we blow it away the next time that they log in. That's not great. So we want to make sure that we want to check to see if that document exists. If it doesn't exist, then we'll go ahead and create a profile for them. And if it does, we'll simply respect the profile that they have, and we'll use that instead of the auth data. Does that make sense? Cool. So we're going to need two methods here. One for creating the user document or the user profile, and one for getting the user document or the user profile. Let's go ahead, and it's really in a real app, I might start to break this stuff out into multiple files, but I'm also aware that if I go make too many files, it gets really confusing to follow along. So I'm going to kind of add more stuff into this Firebase.js file, mostly because I have Firestore and Auth available in here as well. This is going to be a little bit of the squirrelier code that we've written because we are going to check to see if documents exist and stuff along those lines. So I'm going to write a lot of comments as I write the code and I talk. Cool. So we'll start out with this create user profile document, right? And that is going to be an async document. And it'll take some user object that we got back from the auth module. And then we're also going to pass in what I'm going to call additional data. Does anyone have an idea what some of the additional data might be? I asked the display name in that form, right? I'm not getting it back from the email address and sign up. So I can also pass that in as long as well. I was like, OK, make this user profile. Also, they gave me a display name. Use that, right? So for Google Auth, we're going to get the display name out of the box. For email address and password, we're going to pass along the display name that they put into the form. So we'll have both options there. If for some reason this function gets called, and it could get called, without a user. When could it get called without a user? If we're doing it on auth state change for the Google sign-in and they sign out, that will be null. So we'll be like, listen, only do this if you have a user. Otherwise, this will blow up. And React gets very angry if you blow up in a component and don't do a component did catch and stuff like that. So we're just going to try not to blow up here. So if there's no user, leave this function. We're not doing anything. OK, next. We're going to want to see if the document is in the database. So first, we're going to find a reference to that place in the database. OK, we're expecting that if this user had a profile in our database, then it exists at users/their UID. So we want a reference. Remember, we had snapshots of the database, which is the actual data. And then we also have references. The references is just a place in the database that we can talk about and deal with. So we'll say const user ref is firestore.doc. That's going to be users user.uid. Except it's going to be backticks because I'm using string interpolation. OK. And we're also going to see if we can get a snapshot from there. So we'll say we'll start with get a reference. cool. And then go and fetch document from that location. We'll say const snapshot. From that location, go get a document. Now, if we remember all the way back a few hours ago, document snapshots have a property called exists, which is either true or false, depending on whether or not it exists. So now we should know if the snapshot does not exist, then we know we need to go ahead and create one, right? So this is a little bit about users and authentication. This is also a little bit more granular how to work with Firestore documents. So kind of like having it, like we're taking the previous two things that we talked about and trying to like combine them into one thing here. So if the snapshot, plural, it's the one thing I usually can't remember is for query snapshots, it's exist. And for document snapshots, it's exists because English, right? Because English is hard. So we'll go ahead and we'll have this idea of a created at. Now, this is the very first thing on our user profile. There was a little bit of that kind of in the metadata, right? But like it wasn't necessarily on those like top level things in the user that we were pulling in from before. So we'll say new date. And we're going to try to set a document at that user reference if it doesn't exist. Now, previously, when we used post, we used add, right? Add, we gave it a collection, we said add, and it generated a UID for us. This time, we know the UID that we want, or the ID that we want. We know that it should be the UID of the user, right? So we're saying, hey, I found the location where this document should be. I want to set it. So we'll say try user ref dot set, and we're going to give it, we'll pull some stuff off that user object that we passed in. So we'll say const display name, email, and photo URL. Now those could still be, like photo URL is likely to be undefined on an email address and password. We know that. Display name is 2. So we'll say display name, email, photo URL, that created at, which is our own bespoke thing there, and any of the additional data that got passed in. Put it on there as well. So we're going to try to set that. If that doesn't work, we'll do another console error. It's not going to work at first. Does anyone want to take a lucky guess why? This is a trick question. It's not going to work, but. What did we do to our database like 20, 30 minutes ago?
The rule won't allow you to.
Yeah, we locked down our database and did not set up a security rule. So it will blow up. So let's give ourselves an error so that we can see it blow up so we're not totally confused.
And the created that is also created right here, not in a database, right? It's created like on the front.
Because we don't know about Cloud Functions yet.
Okay.
So, yes-ish, because we're not at the end of the workshop yet. We could and likely should do it on the back end. That is a really good instinct there.